Nothing is ever really deleted, so why bother? That line turns up in every thread on this subject, and it does two jobs at once. It sounds like hard-won experience, and it talks you out of the 20 minutes of work that would actually reduce what is held on you. I run systems that hold other people's records. The delete button on a normal service does more than that line allows, and quite a lot less than the wording on the button promises. Both halves of that are true, and the gap between them is where every argument about this lives. I have customer accounts, invoices, usage logs, a database with a nightly backup going off-site. When somebody writes in and asks me to delete their account, I am the one who has to work out what I can remove, what I have to keep, and what my accountant will phone me about if I get it wrong. So this is the view from behind the desk rather than in front of it. Delete is one word for two operations. The first operation is the one you can see. Your record leaves the live system. You cannot log in. Support cannot look you up. Your row stops appearing in the exports, and whatever was profiling you has nothing left to read. The second is the one engineers mean when they get pedantic. The bytes are gone from every medium they were ever written to. Backups. The replica in another region, the search index, the caches sitting in front of it, the log lines. The first happens routinely and on a schedule. The second almost never happens on demand, and mostly for reasons that have nothing to do with anybody wanting to keep hold of you. What the database actually does. Worth knowing the mechanic, because it explains everything downstream of it. Almost no system removes a row when a user presses delete. It sets a column, deleted at, with a timestamp in it. The row stays exactly where it was, and every query in the application learns to skip over it. There is a plain reason for that. It is how you undo an accident. Somebody deletes the wrong account on a Friday, calls on Monday, and one update statement puts it back. Without the flag, you are restoring an entire database to fix one person's mistake. Then a scheduled job comes along later and removes the flag rows for real. That job is the thing people are actually asking about when they ask whether any of this is honest. How often does it run, and did anybody get round to writing it? On a service that is run properly, the answer is days to a month. 30 days is the figure you see quoted most, and in my experience it is usually true. What genuinely goes, once that job has run, the thing that matters has happened, and I want to be precise about why. The live system is the copy that gets used. It is queried, it is joined against other tables, it is exported, it is what a partner receives, it is what a board employee can search on a Tuesday afternoon. A backup is not used. It sits encrypted in object storage and gets touched when something has gone badly wrong. So removing the live record removes almost all of the ongoing exposure, even while other copies of the same bytes exist somewhere. That is the distinction the cynical version flattens, and it is the entire practical value of asking. Backups age out on their own clock. This is where the argument usually ends up. So here is how it works on my side of it. I take a snapshot every night. The nightly ones age out after a month. There is a weekly that lives longer, and a monthly image that sits there for a year, because corruption you introduced in February is sometimes only noticed in May. That arithmetic means a customer who asked me to delete their account in January still exists inside a restore image in August. Nobody decided that. Nobody is hoarding anything. It falls straight out of the retention schedule, and there is a hard reason nobody goes into an old backup to cut one person out of it. A backup you have edited is not a backup anymore. Its only job is to be a faithful copy of one moment, and the second you reach in and change something, you are holding a file you cannot trust to restore cleanly, which defeats the reason you took it. What a careful operator does instead is keep the deletion requests in a queue and replay them after any restore. If I ever roll back to March, that queue runs before the service comes back up, and the person is gone again before anybody can log in. If you ever get to ask a company one technical question, ask that one. Do you reapply deletions after a restore? It separates the ones who thought about it from the ones who published a policy page. The records kept on purpose. Then the parts that are deliberately retained, and I think both of the big ones are defensible. Transactions first. If you ever paid a company, that payment is an accounting record before it is a personal one. It reconciles against the bank statement, and it turns up in a tax filing. I cannot delete an invoice because the person named on it asked me to. It has to survive an audit years after the fact, and obligations of that kind exist in most countries on a clock measured in years rather than weeks. What should happen is that the invoice gets narrower. Name, amount, date, what was bought. Those stay because they have to. The behavioral profile and the usage history sitting next to them do not have to stay, and those can go. So a reply saying we have retained your billing records reads to most people like a brush off. It is the correct answer. The useful follow-up is what else they decided to keep alongside it. Second, anything that has already been turned into a number. If your session got counted into a total, the total does not contain you. A monthly active user count is not a list of users. A median session length is not your session. Those numbers were derived from what you did, and they hold none of it. So removing yourself from a statistic is not an operation that exists. There is nothing in there to take out. You would be asking somebody to publish a different number. One caveat, and it is a real one. An aggregate over a small group stops being an aggregate. Average household income for everyone in this building, when the building has 4 flats in it, is close to a personal fact about 4 families. Statisticians have thresholds for exactly this problem. Plenty of product dashboards do not. The copies that already left, now the thing that genuinely beats deletion, and it is none of the above. It is the copies that were taken before you asked. If a company shared or sold your record onward, that copy is another company's record in another database. Your request to the first one does nothing to the second. The law in some markets says the message should travel down the chain. In practice, the further along you go, the less anybody can tell you who is holding what. I have gone through how that market assembles files in another video, and I am not doing it twice. The only piece of it that matters here is timing. Every day a record sits somewhere is another day it can be copied. And once a copy has been taken, it is permanent regardless of what happens to the original. Timing is the whole strategy. Delete early. An account you close this year still leaves behind whatever was copied out of it over the past 3 years. What closing it stops is everything that would have been copied out of it over the next 3. The value sits in front of you. People picture it behind them, which is why the whole exercise gets written off as pointless. The right mental picture is a tap, the account you abandoned, which brings me to the thing I watch people get backwards most often. An account you stopped using is in worse shape than one you closed. It feels finished because you never open it. It is not finished at the other end of the wire. It still holds an email address, a password you probably reused in 2019, and quite possibly a card. It is still included in every export. It is in the breach when the breach happens, because dormant rows sit in the same table as active ones and nobody separates them out, and nobody is watching it. If somebody logs into an account you use daily, you notice something eventually. If somebody logs into the one you forgot about, nothing reaches you at all, and the address on file is one you stopped reading years ago. That is the worst ratio in your digital life. Full exposure, zero benefit. What a deletion request is actually worth. So what do you get, honestly? You get removed from the live system, which ends the sharing, the profiling, the marketing, and the exports going forward. That is the main event, and it justifies the 20 minutes on its own. You get a dated record that you asked, which is the part that matters if you ever have to argue about it later, and you learn something, whatever the answer is. A company that comes back inside a fortnight with a specific list of what went and what stayed is a different animal from one that fires an autoresponder and then goes quiet for 2 months. The reply tells you who you handed your data to. What you do not get is reach over the copies that already left and edited back up, or your row pulled back out of a statistic. Anybody promising you those is selling something. The part I got wrong. For about 4 years my own systems had a delete button that set a flag and did nothing else. I wrote the soft delete because I needed the undo. I fully intended to write the purge job the week after. I did not write the purge job. I found out during a database migration when the row count did not match what I expected. Records I believed had been gone since 2021 were sitting there with a deleted at timestamp on them. Invisible in the app, perfectly readable to anybody with database access. Nothing had leaked, and nobody had acted in bad faith. Half of the feature had shipped, and the other half was on a list of things to do. I would guess that describes a large number of small services, an unwritten cron job sitting on somebody's list. Mine runs weekly now. The deletion queue gets replayed after a restore, and it took being embarrassed by a migration script to make either of those happen, where I would start. Close the accounts you have stopped using, oldest first. It is the highest value hour available to you, and nobody wants to spend it, because it is tedious, and there is nothing to show anyone at the end of it. Use the actual account deletion route rather than removing the app. Deleting an app takes nothing out of anybody's database. It takes an icon off your phone, read what comes back, and keep it, and then stop worrying about the copy of you inside somebody's restore image from last March. It is real, it will roll off on schedule, and it was never the copy doing anything to you. More privacy tools tested honestly at theprivacywire.com. Subscribe for privacy advice that is actually practical.